And at last, we come to the latest and largest Aardman movie yet, Early Man. Is this a solid bedrock hit, or does it sink like a stone? In the last few years of the Stone Age, a group of Neanderthals live in a small bowl-like valley that was created after the cataclysm event that wiped out the dinosaurs. They live in peace hunting rabbits all day, but the over-optimistic member of the tribe, Doug, played by Eddie Redmayne, tries to convince his chief, played by Timothy Spall, that maybe they should think of hunting bigger animals. But his chief dismisses this as he's scared of change. However, change will be coming to the valley sooner than he wanted, as the Bronze Age has entered the valley, and they're looking for ore to mine, led by their vicious, pompous and greedy leader, Lord Knuth, played by Tom Hiddleston. After some antics, Doug ends up getting thrown into the middle of an early form of football, and challenges Knuth's team to a game for the fate of their valley. With the help of an aspiring footballer named Gunnar, the race is on to get Doug's tribe ready to go against the best players in the world, all face working down a mine for the rest of their lives.
No! What's a mine?
So this is a story that, excluding the cavemen, we've all heard before. The little ragtag sports team that goes up against the best and tries their best to win. And while it isn't a bad narrative, we have seen this a lot before. So what makes this movie stand out from films like Cool Running, The Sandlot and The Bad News Bears? Besides being animated and set in the Stone Age, of course. Well, for one, the cast. This is probably the biggest and most impressive cast of any Aardman movie yet. Eddie Redmayne's very soft, optimistic Doug is a great protagonist.
He said we'll spend the rest of our miserable lives working down a mine. But our ancestors played football, we know they did. I still believe we can do this.
The returning legendary Timothy Spall as the chief is great, though his performance, while good, isn't quite as standout as his performance as Nick from Chicken Run.
Couldn't we try hunting something bigger?
What? Like a hare?
But he does still do a good job as the typical fearful old man who's scared of progression. Maisie Williams as Gunnar, whose name sounds like a Scottish insult, does a good job, though she seems to have trouble with the French accent she's supposed to be doing. It seems to go in and out.
Where have you been? The Stone Age? They may be great, but what they're not is a team, and that's how you can beat them.
Plus, it's hard for me to like anything Maisie Williams is in, since she played one of the most annoying and boring characters in recent Doctor Who memory. But her character is fine, way better than most of the typical token girl characters in the sports movie, and she actually has a personality and is funny.
I'm nearly 32!
Okay, that is old.
And the supporting roles are great too. The IT crowd's Richard Ayoade, Gina Yashere, Johnny Vegas, Rob Brydon, they all do great jobs, though sadly they aren't really given a lot of time to be explored or be really funny, since a lot of the screen time is taken up by Doug and Gunnar. However, one screen hog of the movie that I would gladly watch for hours is the villain, Lord Knuth.
Bonds!
So cold and hard and slippery.
Tom Hiddleston's Lord Knuth is one of not only his best performances, but one of the best performances in any Aardman movie ever. It feels like they mixed the Frog and Queen Victoria together, but he does bring a lot of his own elements to the role. And while I am disappointed that he's a more comedic villain again, seriously, I miss the sinister villains, he is still very funny and has a ton of memorable lines.
Stefano! Not so ham-fisted! You're going down the mine! You're going down the mine!
And he's also probably the first character in an Aardman movie to swear.
It turns out your tribe were totally crap at football.
He is by far the best part of the movie, and it made the whole movie more enjoyable, even through the most boring moments. Knowing that he'd be back made it worth it. While the focus around football is a very clever idea and gives it that British feel, I do worry that this might make the movie a bit alienated to American audiences. Then again, animated movies based around American sports aren't that great themselves. Space Jam, anyone? I will admit that they use the sport in a very clever way, referencing famous tropes and games of the past, even poking fun at the general playing attitude of various countries like Germany, France, and of course England. They even reference the old 1966 World Cup where England won, though thankfully without the typical English trope of going on about it over and over again because we haven't won since then, or mentioning the war in relation to it. Seriously, football hooligans, stop doing that. Nobody cares anymore. Though while there are a lot of good jokes in this movie, I have to say the constant puns and penis humour does tire on me quite often, especially since most of them aren't very funny.
Come on then, let's see you tackle.
But hey, a majority of the jokes are still very good overall, and there's some decent Flintstone-style humour with making modern devices out of animals and such, and the odd bit of Aardman's trademark surreal humour is still there too. And while the movie lacks the great background details of previous Aardman shorts, it does have the quirkiest and oddest sense of humour out of all of them, with giant ducks, talking rocks, football being created by a meteor that killed the dinosaurs, and Rob Brydon voiced bird messages.
You'd better not screw it up, Nuth, or else.
The animation is something that I have trouble deciding if it was the best Aardman has ever done or one of the most unbalanced. What I mean by that is that this movie uses the most CGI intermixed with stop motion out of the whole Aardman library, such as with the backgrounds and some of the more ambitious effects. But while that worked great for the Leica movies, here it's just really obvious and the kind of thing that takes you away from the world. You never get the feeling that what you're seeing is right in front of you, you just start thinking that it's all CGI. And while I'm not condemning the use of CGI, since some of the things they had to use it for were totally understandable, I do feel a lot more effort could have been put into this movie to make it look more like a traditional Aardman film. And admittedly, I'm not sure who made this happen. Since Sony has been very respectful so far to Aardman in letting them do their own thing, this does feel like something that they might have insisted on, but that's just conjecture. And despite that distraction, the parts that are traditional Aardman style do look great and are still very charming. This is also a movie that sadly suffers from a very derivative plot. It's essentially the Mighty Ducks or Bad News Bears, or for a more modern and British example, Bend It Like Beckham, the story of a plucky but underdog team trying to win the tournament with great stakes on the line. And while this is a very beloved narrative, we've seen it so many times before, and to be honest, we're kind of sick of it now, especially since, besides the Stone Age theme, this movie does very little to make it different from usual, other than the setting, and the stakes being higher than normal in these kinds of movies. So I wasn't really invested in this movie as the other Aardman movies, since while a lot of Aardman plots are a tad predictable, this one was extremely so, and really only the characters and silly jokes were enough to keep me engaged. But that being said, I am glad that I saw this movie, and I definitely will see it again in the future. And thus brings us to the end of Aardmay. I hope you enjoyed this look back at the biggest and most successful British animation company in the world, and who knows, if this proved popular enough, I might come back to it again at some point in the future. But for now, I'll see you all in the next review. Bye!